Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a minute. Just felt like making a video today. I had some time, and so I thought, why not? So today's episode or video is going to be addressing a question that people have been asking me recently, and I've begun asking myself actually. Is the question of, is medicine worth it? You guys have sort of been seeing me throughout my journey. Probably not as much as some of the other med school YouTubers who are a lot more diligent about actually making videos throughout med school. I probably only made 2 so far. Yeah, you guys have seen me kind of make a couple of videos before med school started. I made like 2 kind of briefing where I'm at, gave a little bit of advice in some of the other 2 videos, I guess, that I made so far during med school. And so today's video is basically me at the stage of, I'm an M3 right now, a 3rd-year medical student, currently my clinical rotations. So far, I've completed 1 clinical rotation, and I'm on my 2nd clinical rotation right now. I've taken step 1, our board exam, like 3 months ago or so it's been a while. So I feel like it's a good place to reflect and kind of share some insights that I've gained that are applicable to anyone at any stage of their journey in medicine. And yeah, just share my thoughts. It's kind of what this channel is about. So without further ado, I guess we can just jump right into it. The first point I wanted to talk about is when we think about, when we ask ourselves this question of, is medicine still worth it? It really kind of falls back to that key distinction between, is medicine a career versus a calling or a passion? There's people who will fervently, sway in one direction or the other. There's those who believe that medicine is truly a calling. Everyone who pursues a career in medicine, whether as a physician or nursing or, the myriad of other professions inside medicine, they believe that it's a calling to help other people. Then there's another group of people who are, yeah, sure, maybe it's a little bit of a calling, but it's also really, at the end of the day, it's a job, right? At the end of the day, you get a paycheck, you're working a certain number of hours, and at the end of the day, you make money. It's a job, right? Just like any other career, medicine is also a career. So my view on this point is it really, I guess, depends on how you want to see it. Considering medicine as a calling is I guess it adds with it a sense of motivation to be able to pursue the career in the face of 14-hour night shifts or 24s or Q3 calls or whatever. Like, considering medicine as a calling allows you to kind of have a good sense of motivation as you go through this arduous process. But at the end of the day, considering it as a career, I don't believe changes. I don't think it really matters. Yeah, it is a career at the end of the day. And actually, if you consider medicine as a career, it helps to lift off a kind of a almost like a sense of freeing of a burden, right? Because if you consider it as a calling, yeah, it's motivating, but it also makes you feel like if you have bad days or if you have days where you're like, I just don't want to go to the hospital today, or I just don't feel like I just don't feel like I can see patients. Considering it as a career on days like that is a little freeing. It doesn't allow you to or makes it a little easier to feel that way, and not really guilt trip yourself into, oh man, I don't really feel the passion streaming out of me today. So it's really a combination of the 2 of those feelings, and I think both are very equally important in anyone pursuing a career in medicine to be able to kind of stay sane. Just because medicine, there's certain careers that have that warrant unpredictable hours, longer hours, an arduous training pathway. Medicine is one of those fields. So kind of thinking about medicine as both a career and a calling allows one to kind of relieve themselves of a burden, but also keep themselves motivated in the face of this really difficult journey. So that's kind of my kind of thinking about it. So really, it's a combination of the 2 of them. It's a calling and it's a career at the end of the day. On that note, kind of at the theme of, is medicine still worth it? I will say one thing. I didn't really anticipate clinical rotations to be the way they are, to be very honest with you, but just putting that out there. When you start med school, you have a mix of feelings. I was anxious, excited, and also anxious, just because it's a big journey. But after kind of starting med school, you go through your preclinical years. You kind of follow into a routine. You follow into a routine where you're kind of lectures, small groups, learning throughout the day. Right, your job is really just to learn, soak up knowledge and information, as best as you can, and that's in the form of lectures, small groups, self-studying. A lot of it is self-studying, but for almost 2 years, that's kind of what you're doing, a year and a half to 2 years. So that was kind of a routine. And then I think my first kind of I don't want to say wake up call, because I knew kind of what I was getting myself into, but the first kind of very difficult part of med school I realized was taking your first board exam. Kind of similar to how when you take the MCAT, preparing for the MCAT is a pretty stressful journey, and then taking it, and then waiting for your results, getting your results, that's a pretty stressful process. Taking your first board exam is a different level of stress, right? It's a lot of information that you basically crammed in your head for the last year and a half, that now you need to review and also relearn a lot of the stuff that you may have forgotten. And so, and you're really kind of jam packing this into a certain defined period of time, right? For the MCAT, you have a lot more flexibility. You can take this, you can kind of afford to take an extended period of time to study if you need that. For your first board exam, I don't know if there's places where you have a little bit more flexibility with that, but our school, they only gave us around 4 to 5 weeks or something of that nature. Some students, I think, they had the option to take more, but I ended up taking 4 weeks. And that is very compressed. It's a very compressed timeline to review all this information. So you're studying anywhere from 10 hours a day or something of that nature every single day. You're going to have ups and downs in this process as well, right? When you take practice exams, sometimes you'll do great, sometimes you won't. Of course, our class was the first class to have the added benefit of having step 1 pass fail. So I'm definitely not complaining compared to our predecessors, the classes before us who've had to take it for a score. The score meant a lot. That's a totally different level of stress. So not at all complaining, but just the process of going through preparing for and taking your first board exam. It's what? I don't even remember. It's like a 7-hour exam, and it's like 7 blocks of 7 hours, and then you get a total of 1 hour break. How you can distribute that throughout the day, however you please. So it's like an 8-hour testing day. And, the MCAT is already pretty long, but this is kind of like a different level of difficulty, because it's 40 questions each block, and you got to be on your game. And I'm telling you, by the halfway point or further out, you are dead exhausted and you don't want to be there. But so that was a very unique experience, studying for that exam, going through that exam, and taking that exam. Takes 2 weeks to get your results back. Waiting for the results is kind of anxious. So that was one of the most major stressful parts of med school. But I think, going back to the topic of rotations, rotations were not exactly what I expected them to be. There was a higher bar of expectations. Kind of, there was a lot expected of you in the context of not being told exactly what those expectations are, and not really knowing how to meet these arbitrary expectations. So I remember my first week of my first rotation was obstetrics and gynecology, and I was in the gynecology oncology service. And so this is basically seeing patients, seeing essentially gynonc patients in clinic, and also, seeing them in the operating room. So some days clinic, some days was in the operating room for, a very long time. This was my first week. So it was a slightly abrupt transition into, the clinical setting, if you will. I remember one of my first few days on rotation, I was thrown into a clinic, and I was just told, all right, these are the patients, go see them. I was like, what do you want? I don't know what to do. So I went with the resident to see one patient to kind of get the vibe of, okay, how does she, what do you do? What does it mean to see a patient? And then I basically was kind of just thrown in there. And the subsequent patients I had to see by myself. I had to figure things out. And, by the time that I had gotten to my, the 6th patient or so, or whatever, maybe or 8th patient, I kind of got the hang of things. I felt okay seeing a patient, talking to them about, how are they doing? doing a brief little physical exam on them, coming back, presenting to my attending, getting their feedback, going in with the attending to see the patient again. I kind of got the lay of the land, but I will tell you, in the middle of all that, I took like in the middle of like patients, when you had like a little bit of downtime, a very small bit of downtime, I essentially stepped outside, went to the bathroom, and I just like looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, man, what are we doing here? Like, I wasn't really prepared for this. This is not what I thought med school was going to be like. I was like, man, I'm in the right place. So there's a lot of self-doubt. You're going to be questioning yourself a lot. Imposter syndrome, I never understood what that meant. I'll be very honest with you. I've heard about that. You hear about that all throughout. Even your preclinical years, you'll hear about that. But I never knew what imposter syndrome meant until I was in the hospital and I was asked to see patients and come back and present them, and come up with a little mini assessment and plan, if you will. Until I had to do these things, I never understood what imposter syndrome meant. And I will tell you, it hits you like a truck, and it does not go away that quickly. I still have imposter syndrome. And I don't know if it ever really goes away because, I just started my journey in the clinical setting. But I've heard from a lot of residents I've spoken to, the imposter syndrome, it still carries through. But yeah, so clinical rotations were not what I had understood them to be. Obviously transitions are always tough. Any kind of transitionary period is tough. Some are exciting and tough, both at the same time, right? So transitioning into medical school is difficult. Even transitioning from first year to second year is pretty difficult. And then the transition from second year to third year is just, it's on a whole other level, if you will. It's on a whole other level because, you're taken away from a comfortable setting. Our entire lives, what do? We sit in a classroom and we attend lectures, we learn, we take exams. That's what you're doing in the first year and a half, 2 years of med school. A board exam is tough, but, with the MCAT, you kind of are prepared for long, strenuous study periods and, taking a long exam. But clinical rotations, when you're in a clinical setting, it's not how much you know is what I realized. It doesn't matter how much you know. What matters is, your social etiquette, your social skills, and like not a can you hang out with people? Are you nice to people? And not in that kind of way. It's like about, all right, obviously making patients feel comfortable, making sure, you're confident in front of patients, even if you don't know what you're doing at all, being comfortable in saying, you don't know something and asking someone for help. But, also making sure your attending doesn't think you're someone whose hand needs to be held, because that's kind of going to shoot you in the foot for like evals and stuff. Because you are constantly evaluated by your residents and attendings on clinical rotations. So it's a very fine line of kind of balancing this. On clinic days and stuff, I would go in as prepared as I could, read up on all my patients, and then there would be times when I never saw a single one of those patients. I had to see a completely different list of patients. And so it's like being spontaneously aware of yourself and just being okay to go with the flow. And my next point, I guess I'm already kind of talking about it, is accepting it's okay to not know something. I think especially people who go into medicine, the kinds of people that medicine as a field attracts are people who don't like to take risks, people who want to know everything. And even if that comes at the expense of, I'm going to sit down and read the entire textbook and memorize the entire textbook so that I am completely well prepared for my patients, or, for my exam, or, in medicine for your patients. But the thing is, you're not going to know everything. And there might be instances where you know nothing on a topic, and that's the topic you're assigned, or that's the patient that you got assigned, and you're going to need to talk about that, and you're going to need to present that, come up with an assessment plan. You have to be comfortable with that. You got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know that saying might be a little cliched, but this is very, very, very true. And you also have to kind of have a certain level of social awareness to be able to, even though you know nothing about the topic, be able to come across as someone who knows something as opposed to absolutely nothing, and someone who's very eager and willing to learn and curious, and so that people understand that you're teachable. Right? So people understand that, okay, this guy knows a lot, but there's some things he doesn't know, and it's okay that he doesn't know that stuff because he's teachable. He's very eager to learn, he's very curious, and he picks up quickly, and so we can teach this guy. Because, at the end of the day, for med school, the next transition is residency. What people want, when you're interviewing for residency and, if you do your sub-internships and whatnot, people want to see essentially that, you're someone who's teachable, even if you don't know everything. But being comfortable with not knowing something was something very new to me. I'm someone who likes to cover all my bases, right? Like, kind of like, how I talked about, my clinic patients. If I would go through the entire list, go through their entire problem history, make sure I understood everything, every single visit that they had, the purpose of that visit, every medication, the purpose of that medication, what was changed, what needs to be discussed, what should I bring up. I tried to plan in advance, but sometimes sometimes it would work like a charm, and those are the patients I saw, and the residents and attendings, they saw that I knew my patients very well. Other times when when my patient list got changed up, it didn't show. And, that's okay. Being comfortable with that is really important. And my next point, my last major point, and the purpose for making this video is I never understood the meaning or I never internalized the phrase, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you may have heard this, especially with those of you who are pursuing medicine, whether you're a pre-med, med student now. But this idea of medicine being a marathon and not a sprint, you hear this so many times, but frankly, internalizing it is not really that easy. Because, we, as people who go into medicine, risk averse, we're people who like to see results, right? We're kind of trained to see results, especially if you're pre-med. You got to go through your prerequisite classes. So when you take organic chemistry, your result is how do you do in that exam? How do you do in the class? How do you do in that semester? How is your GPA looking? We're so fine-tuned to looking at results, right? At a certain period of time, we want to see the fruits of our labor, whether that be a grade or, score on a standardized exam like the MCAT, or, a tangible, a tangible letter of acceptance to medical school that allows us to move on to the next stage of our journey. We like to see results of our hard work. And if we don't see those results, we kind of get stuck. The people, or with the mindsets that you have for the people who go into medicine, you kind of feel stuck. You're like, what am I doing here? And then you start asking yourself questions like, is medicine still worth it? Like, the question that I'm asking myself, or, that I ask myself from time to time. So what's really important is kind of in the vein of, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's important to be uncomfortable with the fact that you're not going to see the fruits of your labor all the time. Medicine is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take forever, right? Med school's 4 years. Residency is anywhere from 3 to 7 years. If you do internal medicine, want to be a hospitalist, 3 years. You want to be a neurosurgeon, and then want to pursue a fellowship on top of that, 7+, 1 year, 2 years. So look at the length of training. If you're waiting for the day that, you graduate from med school, you graduate from residency, you become an attending, if you are waiting for that day, your life is not going to be spent with a whole lot of happiness. It'll just be a lot of anticipation, stress, anxiety, and a whole host of other feelings, but it's not going to make you feel good. That's for sure. So, I know it's easier said than done, but even if you're pre-med, understand that, being pre-med is just step one of the journey. Medicine is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to get satisfaction. You'll get satisfied when you get into med school. That satisfaction will be short-lived. When, as you're going through med school, you do good on a couple of your first preclinical exams once you get into med school. That's an awesome feeling, but just a step in the journey. There's a larger process here, and that is, there really never is an end goal. So in the vein of it's a marathon, not a sprint, how can you kind of sustain yourself? Well, one is kind of keeping in mind that there's other things outside of medicine that can make you happy. If you make medicine your entire life and you don't have anything else outside of it, that can be kind of detrimental to your mental health, I believe. I didn't actually believe this until recently, but I'm very confident that this is very true. There's, for example, I don't consider myself to be a superly well-rounded person. There's a couple of things I do outside of medicine. Like I'll hang out with my friends. I play the piano sometimes. I read from time to time, but I don't really think I'm someone who has a whole lot of hobbies outside of medicine, but I'm telling you, you should be someone who, is able to look outside of medicine for, you know, for kind of enrichment or, making yourself feel good about yourself, stuff like that. Don't look to medicine to kind of fill any kind of hole or gap in your life, because if you have any, that hole or gap will just keep getting larger and larger. Long story short. So yeah, these are just some thoughts that were floating around in my head that I want to share with you guys. So drum roll to answer the question: is medicine still worth it? Medicine is worth it. It's long hours. There have been days I've spent night. I was on night float. There have been days I've worked out more hours than I probably should have, based on our scheduling. It's okay. But I've also had some very, very satisfying interactions with patients, and so small things like that make it feel good. Interactions like that make it feel like medicine is a calling. And days where I've spent hours and hours and hours, and maybe I didn't see many patients, or I was just in the OR standing, maybe not helping too much. Some days I feel like, okay, medicine is more of a career. It's okay. Each moment, each interaction, each day, each experience is going to be different. And that, kind of full circle, medicine is really what you make it out to be. If you want to treat it like your calling, go for it. If it's just a career for you, that's okay. And, if it's a combination of the both for you, all the better, right? I think for everyone, no matter what anyone says, even if someone says, "Oh, it's a calling for me. This is whatever." It's still a career for you, even you at the end of the day. I don't know how many people would end up doing it if you didn't get a paycheck for it, right? So yeah. With that said, just wanted to make this quick little video. Had some time. I'm currently on my pediatrics rotation, so getting to interact with all the kiddos, and just trying to, be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Just step outside your comfort zone. Try doing something that maybe you never thought you would do. And, if you're struggling with anything, or, in this process, in this journey, you need help, you need a sounding board or whatever, need some advice, I'm always here. So just, feel free to reach out via Instagram or comments, and, I'll get back to you whenever, or, shoot me an email. But yeah, this was just a really quick video. Other than that, I don't think there's really anything else that I had in mind to share, other than, this journey is filled with sacrifices, and it's a very long process. Just make sure, you make time for those who are important in your life, your loved ones, your life partners. And, just keep in mind that, in the end, it's all worth it. I don't know when that end is. I think I said that same thing in another video. So with that said, I hope you guys are all doing well. I know that a lot of you are starting medical school now. Congratulations and good luck at the start of your journey. And I know there's others who are starting a new application cycle. So once again, congratulations on getting this far. Taking the MCAT and stuff is a pretty big deal. And good luck. Wish you guys the best of luck. And as always, I'm a resource here available for you guys. Just reach out if you need anything. Until next time, take care, guys.